Hello. I love peanut butter. And that's my P word. Thank you. I absolutely love it. I love peanut butter so much that when I was a kid, my mom came home from work. I was in my room. I was listening to a record. Those of you who don't know what a record is, please look to an adult. I was listening to some records. My mom walks in, and here I am, mid-scoop, spoon. No fingers, spoon. Hey, Mom. From that point on, my mom was cool enough to buy 2 jars of peanut butter, one for her and my brother, and one for me. Pretty nice mom. I love bananas. Bananas are cool when you live in a city like I do in Washington, D.C., because they're portable. They're the world's natural greatest fast food. You walk around with them, they're coated, they got a nice little handle. When you throw it away, if you do it right, which is don't open the stem, open the back side of it, you have one piece to throw out. Rockstar move. Fantastic. So when I was a kid, I thought, well, I wonder if you put those 2 things together, that's got to be great. And so I became this aficionado of the P, B, and B sandwich. Anyone with me on this? Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I knew Flint would be great for this. The idea of putting these 2 things together is fantastic. It is a great thing to get 2 things that you believe in, that in your heart of hearts, you really aspire to, and put it into one thing. Yes, I said aspire to a peanut butter banana sandwich. Now, there are these other 2 things that I think we need to examine in the same kind of way. The first thing is people. That's easy to do. Everybody right now, turn to your right, turn to your left, examine people. Now people, we are the people. You and I, everyone here. We work hard, we pay our taxes, we work with volunteer organizations, we do the things we need to do. We do that to better ourselves. You know how I know this? Because I've been here at TEDxFlint all morning. You've seen it too. Then there's the other part of it, the politics part. And I wonder, and I'm sure you wonder, is that really working the way that we need it to work? Is it kind of doing what we need it to do? I'm wondering, all of these different ideas, are politicians connected to us? Are they connected to us? Not the U.S. as in the United States, but the us. And am I connected to my presentation? I don't know. The idea of us being connected politically is an important thing that we all have to look at each and every day of our lives. And you know how I know that? Is because right now I would submit to you that politicians are not necessarily connected back to us. I know this because I live in Washington, D.C., and I feel this every time I go out of Washington, because when I do, nobody seems to connect the idea that Washington is more than just those of us who are in the nonprofit sector, say, those of us who are in school, those of us who are just trying to get by each and every day with a job, those of us that are just trying to help our families. And so my submission to you right now is that politics doesn't necessarily connect, but can. And most importantly, should. This is a funny little thing right here. This is the average wealth. And I would point out to you these little M's. Okay, that stands for millions. And the graph is representing House members and Senate members. And that's a little interesting. You guys might have to move this forward because I don't think this is connected. We'll do the thumb. It's good for Sarah. So if you go to the next one, the one thing about this that's kind of interesting is the fact that you have all these millionaires. You have all these people with net worths that are really, really large. And then you look at the idea that, well, average income is $49,000. Yeah, 1,000. So this kind of leads to a question, of course, which is, are they connected enough to know what is important for us to be connected? So I work in the nonprofit sector, and I love it. Every single day I get up, and I feel great about the fact that there's impact happening around me. Not by me, but around me. 49,000 is a small number. Small number. to make this equation work. So for some reason, I think maybe politics needs to be looked at in a different way. And we've tried it with different things. Political parties, we've tried it with movements, we've tried it with all these different things. But I'll submit to you, the next thing that we need to look at is a movement of the idea of the nonprofit sector. And let me say what I mean by this. If you know a nonprofit, raise your hand. If you work in a nonprofit, raise your hand. If you volunteer at a nonprofit, raise your hand. If you've given to a nonprofit, raise your hand. Every single person here has raised their hand like this. We know that the nonprofit sector is strong. We know the nonprofit sector is stretched, right? Work more with less. We also know the nonprofit sector is really good at working with less. We can stretch a dollar more than most. Sad thing, of course, is we represent our sector in the negative, nonprofit. I think we're the only sector that does this. You know, the nonprofit. There's a great group out of Ohio called the Studies Group, and I love them to death. And they are on a crusade to change that moniker to For Impact. And man, does that sound good. It better defines what we do. But here's another obstacle that happens. In politics right now, we have been told that the nonprofit sector needs to stay out of that for fear of losing our tax deduction. I don't know if you guys have been following the news recently. That's happening already. They're looking to do this right now. So whether we're in it or not, it's happening. I submit to you, there is a way of working on our politics through the nonprofit sector that will impact the lives of each and every one of us. And it simply is get involved, but get involved with purpose. And that's why my talk is titled Politics with Purpose. We have wonderful politicians on the national, state, and local levels. But as a group, they don't necessarily look at the nonprofit sector as something other than, you've all done this, and you've all seen this, haven't you? Big check, snap, snap, picture in the paper, everything looks good. Where are they in the day-to-day? I'll give you an example. Today we had a fantastic speech, presentation, and overall experience about arson in Flint. I'm not from here. I'm willing to bet, though, that there was no conversation that had happened with some community members in that area, nonprofit organizations like homeless organizations that maybe helped some of the people who were affected by the fire, and said, this fire's done, but the next one's coming, and how can we fix that? And I submit to you, that probably didn't happen the way it should. You probably have budget issues like we do in the city of Washington. And I'm not talking the Capitol Hill big budget in that dome place. I'm talking the roots where we live. We had a millions and millions dollar deficit. And they said, we got to cut homeless shelter funding, to cut education. We have to cut, we have to cut, we have to cut. We have to balance this budget. And we all got together as an organization, as a different of nonprofits, and said, well, wait a minute. What if we came to you, government, and before you make these cuts, sit with us. Let's tell you what these ramifications might happen if these cuts happen. And more importantly, why don't we give you some suggestions on ways to make these cuts strategic, cliche word, most importantly, impactful as they need to be, not just for the bottom line, but for the double bottom line. How it affects the number and how it affects the person behind that number. And I bet you haven't heard that often, because it doesn't happen too often. Now, I've been working in the sector since and I've been waiting patiently with a lot of leaders. And I'm not talking about D's and R's, I'm talking about non-profiteers. I like that because it sounds very piratey. Hair. I think what we need to do is start bringing people into our politics who already think like you and I, and realize that the strength of the nonprofit sector is something that has to be considered when discussing policy. And I think there's a way I can describe this by a good friend of mine named Robert Egger, who says there are no profits without nonprofits. And there's a cool slide I was going to show you about this, but I'll just explain. Think right now, let's all imagine this pretty cool, especially you two right here. These two presentations from Apollo 1, holy. You're starting a business. You walk into the Chamber of Commerce here in Genesee County. You walk in, you go, I'm going to join this community. Going to bring a business, making widgets. Going to be awesome. I need to know if Flint is right for you and right for me. And what the Consumer Bureau and the Chambers of Commerce and all these folks are going to do is they're going to give you statistics. They're going to say, let me tell you, Apollo 1, why you want to build your business in the beautiful city of Flint, Michigan. And they're going to give you some big ticket item things like, our health care is, and they'll give you an answer. We have a vibrant arts and cultural center, and they'll give you some answers. And our environment, our Rails to Trails program is amazing. You see where I'm going on this? Currently, the way the system is set up, they're talking about nonprofits and the impact they make in the community. At the same time, this same nonprofit who's being touted as the company should move their business here to Flint, Michigan, can't get a meeting to save their life with the mayor. Can't get a vote on something as simple as, maybe when we're doing the cuts here, spitballing this, maybe we should keep the arts in the schools. Right? It's so interesting how this gets lost in the wash of the political. And so I have a solution, an idea, if you will. Maybe we can spread it. The idea simply is this. Nonprofits, you've been told, you've got to lose your C3 status if you lobby, if you're political. Let's not argue that for a second. But nonprofits, the last time I checked, are made up of individuals. Individuals, like you and I, who vote. And there's nothing more powerful than the vote. So, why don't we think this way? The greatest thing in the world, I was going to say on a slide, was a napkin. But now, since we had the lightning round, let's make it a Post-it note. Write down some stuff. Write down who's running this city, who's running this county, who's running this state, and what's their view on the nonprofit sector in terms of policy. And ask them, and ask them, and ask them. Because odds are they're not going to answer you right away, or they're going to answer you in sort of a generic way. And they'll probably say another phrase that I disdain about the nonprofit section, and that is, well, these charities are fantastic. The last time I checked, our charity. Our work is needed. Our work is important. Our work brings us leaders like the Apollo 1 program. Our work matters. And we need to hold all of our elected accountables. We need somehow, some way, for the politicians to understand that the nonprofit sector, nonprofits are businesses too, and they make impact in the community. But if we say that loud and we act like it's Bastille Day, again, if you don't remember what that is, check with your neighbor, we won't get far. But here's where we will. And this is sort of the idea of all ideas of this presentation, and it's simply this. Let's elect our own. You probably know a leader right now in this community who works in a nonprofit organization who's amazing. She's, pardon my French, kicking butt and taking names. She's making things happen. Let's get her to run for city council. Let's get her to get on the school board. Let's say, if we thought that nationally, let's scale that out for a second. There are 14 million people in America who every day get up and work at a nonprofit organization. There are 80 million other people who volunteer every year in nonprofits around the country. Now, I went to a public school, and if I add 80 with 14, pretty sure that comes out to about 94 million people. That's a pretty big block. That's an enormous block of people. What if, let's reimagine this for 1 second, we're having, I don't know, let's say a presidential election coming up. And we demanded of our leadership, what is your position, a policy question, on how the nonprofits should be involved in dealing with the policy issues of the day? I think it's fair to say we all know, in areas like Washington, D.C. and like Flint, Michigan, that when problems occur, nonprofits fill the void. And I love that we do that. But I think maybe if we get a seat at the table, we could say to people, okay, we don't have the money we once had. We don't have the resources we once had. But let's think of some creative ways to get some ideas out there that could help resolve this issue, because inevitably we're going to be all in it helping each other. So take that, or take that napkin, take that piece of paper, take that smartphone that has the voice note, and start asking yourself, what do my elected officials do right now about the human services, things like homelessness, battered women, public education, charter, name however it is you want to name, and ask them to answer what would they do to work with them in making policy work. And then if you don't get a good answer, find someone who will. Run somebody. You run. You run. Get somebody in there who understands that we don't have the luxury anymore of just having the unlimited amounts of money. If you work at a nonprofit, you've never even thought about that, because you already know we don't have any money. You already know we're short money. So nobody thinks that way. But you know what we do? We think about solutions. We don't think about, well, this is just, it is. It is doesn't work. Writing grants all day doesn't work. What works is getting partnerships, collaborations, getting together with groups such as, I don't know, TEDxFlint, for example, and getting ideas to be shared and moved forward. If we can do this, and I know we can engage politics in a different way and start making it work for us. I work in Washington, D.C. I love my city. I don't like what happens on Capitol Hill because it is but a game at times. It is a word I like to say, which is infotainment. You know, we do highlights and we hear the horse race, but what's happening? If you've ever, and I'm sure it happens, I'm sure your city council here in Flint does some kind of local channel, cable access. If not, you know where it is. Go and ask them, what are we doing? Let's make this work. Nonprofits are businesses. Nonprofit people are dynamic. They're interested in what needs to be done and to get it done. Volunteers, you give up your time, you give up your treasure, you give up your talent. We can get this together, we can make this happen, and we can make the greatest peanut butter and banana sandwich the cities have ever seen. Thank you.